Let's go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. It is November 17th. This is the Shawnee County Board of County. What? 17th? Did I say so? Yeah. November 7th. All right. I'm Aaron Mays. I represent District 3. I'm currently serving as chairman. On my left is Commissioner Bill Rippon, representing District 1. And on my right is Commissioner Kevin Cook, representing District 2. Good morning to both of you. Good morning. Madam Clerk, first item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
We've got 4 items on the consent agenda today. If there's no objection, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Next item, please.
Item 4, new business. A, county clerk. Number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Okay, there are no out-of-ordinary items to note this week. Total vouchers as of November 4th, 2022 is $2,379,910.91. No questions or comments. I would move for approval of the vouchers.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Next item.
Number 2, consider correction orders.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Next item, please.
Item B, Department of Corrections. Number 1, request approval to reclassify a juvenile intensive supervision officer position to a juvenile programs specialist position with the Community Corrections Office for an increase in salary and benefits of $8,936 to be paid from state grant funds.
Morning, Commissioners. This item is continued work that we're doing to restructure the ISP office and put more emphasis on programming. We've done this on the adult side with 2 positions, and this is on the juvenile side. And this officer, when he saw the opportunity, he took it and took on the extra work. And so now he is fulfilling those duties, and so I'm just making the reclassification.
Any questions?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. Next item.
Number 2, consider authorization and execution of Contract C-326-2022, a first amendment to the State Fiscal 2023 Memorandum of Understanding with Shawnee County Regional Alcohol and Drug Assessment Center for increased care coordination services with adult community corrections for an amount of $45,500 to be paid from fiscal year 2023 county funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. This is also an enhancement of our programming activities. This particular group we've been working with for a number of years, and they have they've identified the ability to almost 100% of the people that participate in the program are successful on probation. And so we've maxed out what one person can do, and we have a lot of clients who still need the services. And so I put in the budget to increase to a second care coordinator, and that's what this item will do effective January 1st.
Okay. Questions?
No.
All right. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item C, County Counselor's Office. Number 1, request to acknowledge the Administrative Review Committee report of a tax exemption for Torgerson Electric and request for a public hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ashley Biegert, Assistant County Counselor, here before you this morning as Chair of the Administrative Review Committee. In accordance with our Shawnee County Home Rule Resolution setting forth the policy and procedure for considering tax exemptions for economic development, our committee met on October 25th to consider an application from Torgerson Electric Company for a tax exemption on real property located at the northeast corner of 14th Street and Saline. Torgerson is relocating to this property and intends to construct a new facility that will be used to expand their manufacturing capability as well as their storage capacity. At the meeting, the committee voted unanimously to recommend to you a 10-year, 100% tax exemption on the property, which is contingent upon their projected added positions. And they projected 40 new positions over the next 5 years. Today, we're asking this board to take 2 actions. One, to acknowledge the committee's report, not necessarily adopt it, but just acknowledge it. And second, to set consideration of this tax exemption for a public hearing. In order to account for the publication requirements that we have for these, as well as some of the canceled meetings in November and the applicant's availability, I would like to propose that we set this for public hearing on December the 5th. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? All right, I will make a motion that we acknowledge receipt and set a public hearing for December 5th.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item D, Audit Finance. Number 1, consider approval of contract C-327-2022 with Forvis LLP for audit services for the year ending December 31st, 2022 for $97,500 plus 5% administrative fee.
Good morning, Betty Griner, Director of Administrative Services. On July 18th, the Commission approved us to issue an RFP for audit services for the county. Then on September the 8th, you awarded the bid and authorized the counselor's office to negotiate a contract. This is the last step in this process. This will, this engagement letter is the contract, and that will authorize the audit services for the year ending December 31st, 2022. Any questions?
Questions for Betty?
No. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item E, Planning Department. Number 1, public hearing and consider approval of resolution number 2022-86, a major amendment to the site plan for CU 2107, a conditional use permit, adding 3 parcels immediately west of the original site plan for an additional 61.98 acres on properties zoned RA1, Rural Agriculture District. The requested amendment would not modify any of the 25 conditions required under CU 2107, but instead enlarge the area to be mined.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joni Fedani, Director of the Planning Department. Okay, as was mentioned, we are here for a public hearing on a major amendment to a conditional use permit that was previously approved. And what this is Mid-States Materials has come back and asked to modify the Tecumseh sand pit off of Cripey Road. You had originally heard that back in February and approved that 3-0. And there were 25 conditions that were set on that conditional use permit. So what this is it's a major amendment to the site plan, not to the conditional use permit itself. The parcels are zoned RA1, and as I mentioned, off of Cripey Road. There are 3 parcels that are intended to be added to this site plan. They are immediately west of the original site plan, and it's going to add just shy of 62 acres. We would not modify any of the 25 conditions required as approved back in February, but we're just going to enlarge the area to be mined in this major amendment. This conditional use permit was originally heard at public hearings at both the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. Public was given notice of those hearings and were allowed to speak. All golden factors were considered and weighed. Both planning staff and the Planning Commission recommended approval, and then 25 conditions were made a part of the permit. Now, I want to explain just briefly that when you hear an original conditional use permit, we go through a whole notice process, sending out notice to people 1,000 feet around the property. We have public hearings at both Planning Commission and here. Once the conditional use permit is put into place, you can modify that conditional use permit. So what we're doing here is a major amendment to the original CUP. There's an option to do a major amendment or a minor amendment. And a minor amendment would be just minor changes, ones that I could do in-house at the planning department that wouldn't require public hearings. Because of the notoriety of the sand pit, because of the public that came out to speak at both the Planning Commission and the BCC meetings, and because of the circumstances, I elected that we needed to do this as a major amendment and come back and do a new public hearing. So what you're hearing today is just the amendment to the original conditional use permit. We do not modify the original CUP at all. This is just asking to add to it. The site is located in a floodplain. The original site was as well. It requires state and local permits. And so I just want to point that out because those are things that will have to be done on top of the additional conditions. And those were in place with the original conditional use permit as well. The parcels that we're adding on are historically used as agricultural purposes. One of the parcels, and you'll see here just a minute with our map, is the location of the home with children that was addressed as a concern at the original conditional use permit. It was the parcel right next to the mine, and the parents of those children were here and had issue with the Tecumseh sand pit going into play. Those people have now entered into agreements to sell their land to Mid-States Materials, and Mid-States Materials has negotiated the terms of that. And if this amendment is approved, those parcels would actually be sold, and that family plans to move from their home. You'll see here the map, and I'm going to point to the original. These parcels right here, these two, are the original conditional use permit parcels. And then you have the three over here. These are the three in yellow that are being added. The house that we're talking about is located on this parcel right here. This is the notification area. The original conditional use permit notification area would have been a little bit further to the east based on the location of the parcels. So there are people who would have been notified about the original CUP that would not have been notified about this based on statutory requirements. Just like with a CUP, with a major amendment, we do send out notice to all of the neighbors within 1,000 feet. We publish notice in the paper. We have the public hearing at the Planning Commission and, of course, then here at the BCC. Mid-States Materials, I assume, will present a little bit of information for you here shortly, but this is the site plan that we are asking to amend. The original site plan would have included the section over here to the right, and then phase 3 is what's being added over here to the left. And here's just a little bit closer up picture. In terms of public input, 9 letters were sent out to property owners within 1,000 feet. One of those owners happens to be the Frakes, which is who owns the parcel to the right that is under the original conditional use permit. We did not receive any public comment prior to the Planning Commission meeting. Nobody attended the Planning Commission meeting other than the applicant, so no one spoke in support of or in opposition to the changes. After the approval of the Planning Commission, we haven't received any contact at all either. The only concerns that I, as the staff, had were making sure that we maintain the condition that they have to obtain the proper permits from the state and the county for floodplain matters, and that they follow all of the conditions as set forth in Resolution 2022-13 for the conditional use permit CU 2107. And I included that original conditional use permit as a part of your packet today so that if you wanted to review any of those conditions or see the original conditional use permit that you could. I have no further comments. Oh wait, I did have one, sorry. So staff findings. I find that it's going to comply with the golden factors. It's appropriate use of the property based on zoning. Location is suitable based on its connection to the current conditional use permit. The materials that this provides are used for a public benefit, so it is a benefit to our county, and then it's also consistent with our Shawnee County Comprehensive Plan to have these types of businesses within our county. And finally, is that my recommendation is that we approve the major amendment with all of the conditions set forth by the original conditional use permit. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Joni. Questions for Joni?
Mr. Chairman. Why do this as a major or a minor amendment? Why not make the applicant go through an entire new CUP process?
Well, because that would entail doing a whole new public hearing and renegotiating conditions in which you may end up having separate conditions for one parcel versus the other. This is gonna be operated as all one business. It's one operator, Mid-States Materials, doing all of the work across all of the parcels. If we had two different conditional use permits, I just think that it would be more follow-up to have to make sure that they're complying with each of the conditions on each of the parcels. It makes more sense to just expand the site plan and make it all part of one permit so that we're monitoring one permit.
When we took up the original CUP, former Shawnee County Commissioner Mike Myers came and addressed the county commission with concerns of flooding and the floodplain. So it's your position that anything dealing with flooding or floodplain would be regulated by the state, not by the county planning?
Well, we do have regulations through the county planning department that they also have to come in and apply for permits, but coinciding with that, they have to apply through the state. We don't ever issue any sort of permit within a floodplain without it going to the state and having the state tell us whether or not they're gonna also issue a permit from their office. And so they have to apply to both.
On the original application, as with other extraction sites, there's always a concern about the amount of the traffic, dust, deterioration of the roads. Is this going to have a further impact on the roads, or are there considerations about what impact this may have and how Mid-States may contribute to the roads?
I will only comment briefly on that and allow Mid-States Materials to further explain that. But the plan is that this will not increase the amount of activity. It just expands the option for activity across all of the parcels. So they are not going to have more trucks. They're not going to increase hours. They're still complying with the original plan where they'll start at phase 1 and then slowly move across to the other phases. So it will not change anything in regards to the plan that was originally in place. It could just potentially expand the length or the ability to dig sand out of this area.
On other extraction applicants, we've had an annual review of their permit. Is that going to be part of this amendment?
Well, so the amendment itself asks to adopt all of the original conditions, and as the original conditions set forth, they do have to do a review after 1 year, and then after that first year, then every 2 years. And so all of that would apply across the board to all of these parcels.
So what would their deadline be? Would it be the same as the original application, or 1 year from today?
Well, so this is not a new application, it's just an amendment to expand the original. So everything falls to the original. It will all be based on what the original has. And once, it's 1 year from the beginning of operations, and operations have not started yet. So it will just coincide all of those with the original plan, and they'll base it off of what they do on the original conditional use permit.
What notice does Mid-States have to give to the county when they begin operations?
I do not recall that they have to give us any notice whatsoever.
Then how are we going to track when their 1 year period of review would start?
That would be up to the applicant to comply with that, and if at any point in time someone complains or we find out that they've been doing operations without notifying us, then we have the ability to come in and shut down operations based on the conditions that are set forth.
Can we add as a condition that they have to provide notice to the county when they begin operations?
We could add a condition in regards to providing notice, yes.
So I just don't know how we would track it otherwise. I mean, our offices are busy enough for you to go out every 90 days and check to see if they're doing operations doesn't seem logical.
No, it's not.
But for the applicant to say, sending a letter to us, and then they would be on notice that they have a duty to notify us when they begin operations.
We could definitely add a condition that they provide us notice if they are, once they begin their operations, so
And then
that we
would
know
set
when
our-
it starts.
Then we would start our trigger of review.
Correct.
Further questions for Joni? All right, then I'll make a motion that we go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. We're in a public hearing right now. We do have two people signed up to speak. First up is going to be Rich Eckert.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rich Eckert, the Bettis Companies. Instead of going through my entire presentation that all of you have already seen earlier this year, I'm not going to do that. I do have it ready in case you needed to see something in particular. It closely matches the last application. A couple things have happened to bring us to this point today. If you remember, some of the original testimony was that we do have an operation on the river, basically kind of where Urish Road would terminate into the river. However, that's permitted by the Corps of Engineers, and they are very on top of it in terms of degradation of the riverbed. And in fact, what happened this summer is that on the Kansas River, there are 5 mining operations. And this summer, they denied renewal of 2 of those permits. So of the 5 sand operations in Kansas on that river, at the start of next year, there will only be 3. Our permit was renewed, but instead of, our last permit was for 3 years, this time they only gave us a permit for 2 years. So these sand operations on the river, they just don't last over time. And if you recall, that's kind of the impetus for us to do what we did, was to be ready for the day, and there will be a day when the Corps doesn't renew that permit. But yeah, approximately 40% of the capacity has now been removed from the river, basically from Topeka to Kansas City. Another thing that happened is that in Leavenworth County, a major sand operation there has not been able to get a permit. So the sand is going to be an issue, not just locally, but it's going to be an issue statewide, I would say. So that's why it's kind of important that we've been looking to the future, and with your assistance, we already have a CUP. So what brings us here today, and why you're not going to see a lot of testimony from the neighborhood, is that we did reach an agreement. Unlike the Frakes property, we have a lease on that, but here we're outright purchasing these 3 tracts. And as much as it looks like we're enlarging our business and we're enlarging our capacity to exist in the future, the other thing that we're doing is removing the #1 safety issue that was the brunt of the hearings this April. So we're pretty proud that we were able to come to an agreement with these landowners. It was an agreement that they considered to be favorable to them as well. This wasn't a case of us pushing anybody out. These are pretty good terms. So we feel very good about that, and I think that's why you don't see neighborhood resistance to where we're at today. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have. And Commissioner Cook, we're fine with an amendment that we would notify you, the county, when we start operations.
Okay. Questions for Rich?
And the other thing I would add, Commissioner Cook, is that the difference between a major amendment and an all-new CUP, it doesn't look that different from our viewpoint. It might look different from Joni's, but from ours, when we incorporated all of the materials we had already sent, it looks a lot like a CUP to us from our side.
Okay. All right, no questions. Thank you, Rich. The next person I have signed up to speak is Cole Anderson.
Cole cedes his time.
Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item in favor or against or neutral? Okay, seeing none. I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. All right. Discussion. Okay. Then I would move that we approve the resolution, the amendment, with the additional condition that they notify the planning department when operations begin.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Next item.
Item F, Court Administration. Number 1, consider a request to pay the Office of Judicial Administration $21,284 for supplement compensation for calendar year 2023 from 2022 budget funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, 3rd Judicial District. On October 20th, Jim Crowell presented to the commissioners in my absence a contract which provided for supplemental pay for our magistrate judges. As you recall, this is the first time Shawnee County has had magistrate judges, and in an attempt to attract the best possible candidates, we chose to provide supplemental pay from the standard wage that is set by the judicial branch. So there were basically 2 letters from the Office of Judicial Administration. One provided for an amount which represented the balance of calendar year 22, and the other letter represented an amount for calendar years 2023 and future. So what I have is, for 2023, the amount of supplemental wage plus our share of the benefits for that state position is $21,284. I'm requesting that we have permission to pay that amount out of 2022 budget funds instead of waiting until 23. Primarily, the reason is the Office of Judicial Administration won't make payment of those supplemental funds until they actually have receipt of the money and have verified those deposits. So I'm fearful that if we wait until the first week of January, we're going to enter into the same issue we had when we paid the $4,100, and our judges are going to miss at least one pay period of their supplemental pay, and it'll have to be paid at a later time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Has this been reviewed with audit finance?
It basically has. We've talked about this previously.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item G, Commission. Number 1, appoint Brett Tyson to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
I'll move that we appoint Brett Thiessen to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Next item, please.
Item 5, public comment.
I don't have anybody signed up. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak today? Seeing none, next item.
Administrative communications.
Any administrative communications?
Good morning, Commissioners. Kellen Seitz, Stormont Vale Event Center and OVG 360. We've got an extremely busy week coming up this week at the Vale. We kick off our annual Blizzard Bash Demolition Derby on Thursday with 5 performances running through Sunday. Excited to report gross ticket revenues are up significantly over our record-setting year last year. So looking forward to 5 days of cars smashing themselves to bits in the arena. So if you have any interest, we encourage you to come out and join us. It's an exciting event with a significant economic impact to the community. In addition to that, last week we announced Foreigner coming to the building on May 2nd, and venue pre-sale starts for that show on Wednesday this week, with the public on sale taking place Friday morning at 10 a.m. So very excited about the new pieces of business coming to the building.
Thank you, Kellen. Yeah, and even if you don't get tickets to the Blizzard Bash because it's probably sold out, it's still pretty fascinating. You drive through the parking lot.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. I'd like to take this opportunity to inform the Commission and the general public that with my contract with Waste Management, they are authorized to increase my yearly rates up to the CPI. And we received notice on Friday that effective January 1st, we will be getting that annual increase for our rates. As you know, inflation is high right now, and our annual increase is hitting 7.9%. So we'll be going from $33.91 per ton all the way up to $36.59 per ton. So I've let the county councilor and audit finance be aware of this. So that is what we're facing going into next year.
Great. Anyone else? Commissioner Rippon?
Well, I wanted to talk about an event we had last Saturday at Gage Park. We were dedicating our new World War II monument, and we had some special guests. You can see it on the screen. These three gentlemen are World War II veterans. The man on the right is Jim Friel. He's a former Topeka police chief. He's 99 years old. Fought in the Battle of Iwo Jima, was wounded. The man in the middle is Roy Reese. He's 98. He was in the U.S. Navy. He was on a steamer ship. And then the man on the far left is Orville Knodel, and he was also in the Pacific Theater on a ship. And he is, I believe, was 95 or 96. So hats off to the greatest generation. And it was a good event. We had several hundred people out there. It was a good time, good weather.
That's great.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Cook?
I understand that elections are still going on today until noon for advanced. If you want to get your ballot in or get your voting in, do so before noon. Otherwise, you got to wait till tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., if I'm not mistaken, at your local polling place. So don't miss the opportunity to exercise your rights. I don't have anything other than that, so next item.
Executive sessions.
We do have a need for executive session today, so I will move that we go into executive session for a period not to exceed 60 minutes for the following reason. Consultation with an attorney for the public body or agency which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, specifically for contract negotiations involving a Stormont-Vail Event Center. As I mentioned, this will be for 1 hour. No action is expected following this executive session. I think we're going to do this in the basement, so let's take a few minutes to get down there. We'll begin at 9:40. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. We'll be in executive session at 9:40. Hold on, I gotta adjourn the meeting real quick. Good. All right, we're back from executive session. No action was taken. We're adjourned.